So, hey everyone, welcome back to Self Worth School. We are back in session, and I'm so excited to be joined by Victoria. Victoria, you are our guest teacher today. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what led you to specialising in women's hormones and well-being?
Okay, I'm going to start when I was four, actually, if that's okay.
You take it all the way back. Go on.
Yeah, when I was four, I wanted to be a nurse because I wanted to help people. And then when I was about 3 months later, my grandparents asked me, and I said I wanted to be a doctor because they earned more money. And then I wanted to be a vet. And then I went to school. And I kind of forgot all about that and went to study physics and became a research scientist. But that need to help people, that wish to help people kind of continued. So I was doing research and really fun stuff. So techniques for mammography and drug discovery. And it was really interesting. But I didn't ever feel like it was immediate enough. And then in parallel, I also had my own journey, health journey. So was suffering from really bad period pains and pain at other times from a very young age. And I had a whole bunch of treatment, a whole bunch of investigations, and it was eventually diagnosed with endometriosis, which then led to more treatment and more hospitalizations and surgery and all sorts of fun stuff. And the two collided at a meditation retreat where I had a chance conversation with a doctor and said, I really want to help people, explained my history. And he said to me, you'll work out what it is you want to do. And from that, by the end of the meditation retreat, I was signed up to do a herbal medicine degree for fun. And that's just taken me on this long journey. But whilst doing my herbal medicine degree, I was really, really skeptical. And I thought, do you know what? I'm in pain every single day. If this stuff really works, then I'll be out of pain. And I was just completely blown away that in 3 months, I went from being in pain every single day to being completely pain free. And I didn't have period pains, and my life just completely changed. And I realized that actually a lot of women suffer in the way that I did, and that actually I can do something about it through education, through herbal medicine, through all sorts of different means. And so that's why I focus on women's health.
Awesome. I love that journey. So, so I hear so many women say things like any women from like my clients, my friends, like my relatives say things like I just don't feel like myself anymore. And I feel like a lot of them aren't really sure what the root of it is. They might feel more anxious, more exhausted, like, talking about brain fog, or they're just feeling a bit more emotional or overwhelmed. And they often kind of blame themselves or like, blame their bodies or whatever. Why is this such a common experience for women in your experience or opinion?
So in order to explain that, we're going to have to dive a little bit into the endocrine system. So I will make it high level and simplified.
Yeah, sure.
But the endocrine system is your body's hormone system. And that includes lots of different hormones. So it includes your sex hormones, so progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, but it also includes other hormones like the thyroid hormone, insulin, which is your blood sugar hormone, cortisol, which is your stress hormone,
Yeah.
all sorts of other hormones as well. And what we're not told is that it's all interlinked. So when you hit perimenopause, the first thing that happens is your progesterone starts to decline. And progesterone's really protective, it's really calming. But in that decline, what also happens is that if you've had a stressful few years, maybe you've got kids and you're running after around after kids, or you've got a busy job, or you've got parents with ill health and you're trying to juggle everything, your cortisol rises. So it's your stress hormone. And as you've got this seesaw of estrogen declining and progesterone declining, what happens is that the effects of that cortisol start to become more noticeable. And it may not be that the estrogen and progesterone or the perimenopause is the issue. It may be actually there's a stress related
Mm.
issue and you're not feeling yourself, you're getting anxiety because of cortisol. But that cortisol's been there all along, but it's just been masked. And now
Yeah.
you've got fluctuating sex hormones.
Yeah, that
All
don't
of a
do the
sudden, it's
job
like,
of managing it like maybe it did before.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the signs then that hormones might be playing a bigger role than we realize? Because, like I said, there's that often there's that balance between, oh, maybe this is just my time of life and it's my perimenopause and it's this. What are the signs that actually they might be playing a bigger role than we realize, and it might not just be something that we just need to deal with?
I think if you've got any sign and you're not feeling like yourself, that's a sign that your hormones are playing a part. And it's a sign that you need to do something about it. Now, that doing something about it doesn't necessarily have to mean, you go to your doctor and you go on
Mm.
HRT, but understanding your own body and noticing something's going wrong
Yeah.
means that actually trust yourself and something's going wrong. And, just to kind of give common things, some of the first signs can be like brain fog, difficulty finding words for things,
Yeah.
just feeling like you've lost motivation, really subtle things. Maybe you've got some digestive issues that can be related to hormones. So these things are really subtle. And unfortunately, women often think like, I'm going crazy
Mm.
because they're not getting hot flushes, they're not getting night sweats, maybe they're getting a few more palpitations. For me, I had a period of about a month where I was terrified of driving. It lasted for a month and then I was fine
Crazy.
again. But for a whole month, I didn't want to get in a car and drive. And you kind of think like you're going a bit mad because it's like, I'm used to driving. What's going on?
Yeah.
Um, but
So
these
you
are
got starting to
really
get anxious about things that you wouldn't normally get
exactly.
anxious about. Yeah, because I suppose it makes complete sense because if whatever's been keeping your kind of well-being and confidence and mood just balance is not, it must feel like such an unsettling place to be, to feel.
Yeah, yeah. And it really is. And it can happen. This is the another thing that they don't tell you. It can happen as early as 40 for a normal menopause. We think that menopause happens in our 50s,
Mm,
but actually those signs start happening 10 years earlier.
yeah.
So if you have menopause at 50, then you're 40 when you start noticing those changes.
Mm, yeah. And, a lot of women are told like it's just stress or just getting older, isn't it? Like it's something that we just have to deal with. But
No.
ultimately, it's not. It's even though, perimenopause and menopause are very kind of natural parts of life, not all
Mhm.
experiences are going to be the same for the same people. And it isn't necessarily something we just have to ride out, right?
No, no,
No.
no, no, no. And I get frustrated that even nowadays, women are told by female doctors, oh, it's just part of getting old, or it's just menopause, I'm afraid, when actually it's never just anything. There are many people who go through these big transitions in life with no symptoms at all. So there must be something that's driving those symptoms. So let's understand what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can do something about it.
Yeah. And what about, I mean, we're speaking a lot about perimenopause and menopause, but there are times just in your normal, I hesitate to say normal, but your normal kind of cycle, like people that are just having periods. Like I've got quite a few friends that have suffered from PMDD. In fact, one of them even had like a medical like hysterectomy, to
Mhm.
help manage that. But yeah, there's people suffering with PMDD and, or ridiculously heavy, painful periods that are like paralyzing them. Can you speak on that in terms of the kind of effect that hormones might have on that?
Yes. So it's never just hormones, right? Um, so period pain okay, firstly, let's make it clear. PMDD, period pain, getting really upset and crying before your periods is not something that is just normal for you. It's not just your hormones, and it's not something that you have to put up with. There are solutions out there. Now, unfortunately, the medical profession have a very limited toolkit and limited time. And the NHS is amazing. And also, all they can really offer you are antidepressants or the pill because that's all that's within their
Yeah,
toolkit.
it's masking it's managing, isn't it? But not necessarily sorting the root
Exactly.
cause. Yeah.
Whereas period pain, for example, can often come from inflammation. And the things that we eat, our lifestyle can really drive that inflammation. So for really, really bad period pain, a really simple thing that you can do at home is just cut out sugar. Sugar is really highly inflammatory, and cutting it out can actually reduce those period pains dramatically. And it's really unfortunate because if you've got period pains, I used to suffer from terrible period pains. The first thing I want to do is just reach for a
Yeah.
chocolate bar.
Yeah.
It's just
And then kind of
terrible.
feels like, oh no, I've got this, and now you're telling me I can't even have the thing that
I
makes me
know.
feel good. Yeah.
I know, but I always work with like an 80-20 rule. So make your lifestyle 80% good so that when you have that period pain, you can reach for that chocolate
Yeah.
bar because you know that actually mostly it's okay. And you may find you don't need to because if you're reducing eating a very anti-inflammatory diet, reducing things that are pro-inflammatory like sugar, then actually you may not get bad period pains in the first place.
And in terms of like things that we can do, because let's say you've already started to kind of mention a couple of things, what other kind of practical changes can make the biggest difference in your experience? Things that people can do.
Yeah. So I think it comes first down to understanding what the root cause is. So
Hmm.
I mentioned inflammation. Inflammation can be a driver of period pain, but there are other things. There's estrogen dominance, which is a whole lesson in and of itself.
Yeah.
There's blood sugar fluctuations, there's thyroid related issues as
Hmm.
well. And all of these can drive period pain, menopause symptoms. They can all have the same, root causes, if you like. So understanding what your drivers is really important. And I've got a little quiz. I'm sure you can link it as well,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is just a really simple thing to help you understand what's driving your symptoms.
Mm.
Then, if you know what's driving, if you know it's inflammation or if you know it's blood sugar dysregulation, then you know that there are things that you can do in your
Mhm.
diet and lifestyle to stabilize that. If you know it's estrogen dominance, there are certain nutrients that you can take that will help to support estrogen clearance in the liver, for example. But I think understanding what's driving it
Yeah,
and
you need to
understanding
know.
your own body is
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah, having that awareness first, because otherwise it's like trying to plug a gap in like a leaky bucket with a blindfold on. Like you can't, you know,
Exactly.
you don't know where the holes are. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. So, what are
Yeah.
some of the biggest misconceptions about supporting our hormones in terms of like what we're told to do?
Ooh. Um, so the wellness industry is fantastic at the minute. There's lots of things you can do. It goes through phases. The latest one is mushrooms. So I would say avoid all of that. They are fads generally. I would say that actually start with a good basis. So a good Mediterranean style diet. It's really simple, boring stuff. Moving your body regularly in whatever way that can be walking, it can be running, it can be dancing around the kitchen like a lunatic. Getting the basics right first is really, really important. So just going back to like the endocrine system, the hormone system, I think one of the biggest myths is that it's all the fault of estrogen or progesterone or your sex hormones. And that's looking at it very, very narrow. Going back to this, like understanding what the drivers are and
Mhm.
not believing it's just your estrogen or it's just because you're getting older. You know, it's just such a lie that we're being told as women that, because we have estrogen, that's the problem, when actually there are other things that are going on in our health that are driving the symptoms and actually getting to that root cause will
Mhm.
give us much better health.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And other than your fabulous quiz, which we will definitely be sharing in the show notes, where should somebody start if they do suspect that their hormones are affecting how they feel?
Start by trusting yourself and listening to what your body's telling you. So make a list of all of the things that are going on and go and see a medical professional with that list. And if they fob you off and say, it's just perimenopause, it's just your hormones, it's just something, insist. Insist on getting blood tests done so you have more data. Insist on being investigated. If you are bleeding, either between your periods or you haven't had periods for a while and you stop bleeding again, insist on getting that investigated. It's really about understanding what's going on in your body and then really advocating for yourself.
Mm.
And do that with knowledge, do it with evidence and say, no, something's not right. You know, just going back to my own experience. I was 16. I knew something wasn't right. And I was lucky because a doctor believed me. And she didn't know what was wrong, but she believed me. And I think insisting, asking to speak to another medical professional if you're not getting the support that you deserve, is really, really important.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. Great advice. So tie it back to self-worth because, that's what the podcast is all about. How do you see hormonal changes affecting the way that women think and feel about themselves and their self-worth?
Mm. I mean, it can massively drop your confidence
Mm.
hugely from any stage of life, actually. If you're suffering and you're in pain once a month, then you feel like you can't function. If you have a week before your period where you feel like you're a raving lunatic, you feel like you can't be around other people, right through to if you're perimenopausal and you're having all of these weird things happening to your body and to your brain, and you feel like you're going insane, you can start to lose confidence in yourself. And this is kind of why I insist on, trusting your own body, because bringing it back to, my body knows stuff and I can believe it, regardless of what other people tell me, starts to build that confidence back up,
Yeah.
starts to build belief in yourself, and starts to give you that confidence that actually you can trust in yourself.
And how can understanding our hormones help us, like you say, to build that compassion, towards ourselves instead of feeling like we've somehow lost ourselves and we're never gonna come
Yeah.
back?
Um, we're always changing, right?
Yeah.
This is the only surety in life is change. And our hormones are cyclical things and they have their own rhythm. And when you start listening to it, you start learning about that rhythm. For instance, if you have heavy periods, you're going to feel more tired, your energy is going to be lower. So if you can, listening to that and resting more around your period, you're going to have more energy when you ovulate. So listening to where is my energy highest, and then you can go out and do all the fun stuff
Mm.
and building awareness of that cycle that we naturally have as
Yeah.
women. And then also throughout our lives, that cycle and those changes really, really helps to bring us back to that trust in ourselves, brings us back to having confidence that we are cyclical human beings and our bodies are telling us some really good stuff.
Yeah, and just be like you say, being compassionate and supporting ourselves with that, rather than being, oh, I should be like X, Y, Z all of the time, or at this point, it's more like, no, actually, my body, this is what I need right now. This
Yeah.
is good enough right now. And that if I look after myself in this space, I'll have more energy to connect back to myself and do things to support myself in this space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll come to the key takeaway. So if somebody listening to this episode has recognized themselves in today's conversation about feeling, a bit disconnected from themselves, struggling with hormones, what have you, what's the biggest mindset shift that you would love them to take away? If they remembered nothing else, what would you want them to remember from this conversation?
Trust your body. Absolutely. Start listening to it. There is no greater thing that you can do or lesson that you can learn throughout your life than listening to and trusting your own body and what it's telling you.
Yeah. And I think the more that they do that, the more you are going to feel, more connected to yourself, because you're, instead of trying to see your body and your hormones as something you want to disconnect from because it's painful, it's annoying, it's whatever, the more that, I guess, the more connected you feel to yourself, and the more you feel like you understand yourself and your body, the more you are going to feel like you've come back to yourself in a way. And just
Exactly.
understanding that, who we were when we were 20 is different from who we
Yeah,
are when we're 40 and 45. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we deserve to, give our body the attention and focus and understanding that we would want from our, emotional mind,
yeah,
which is often controlled by hormones as well. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And so what's one simple thing? It's listener homework time. One simple thing that our students could do this week to better support their hormones and themselves.
I'm going to go with reduce sugar, actually. The
Mhm.
key takeaway is listen to your body, but the actual action is look at how much sugar you've got in your diet, how much refined sugar. It's really inflammatory for a whole host of reasons. It's really important to cut down on refined sugars. So if you tend to grab the chocolate bar, which we all do occasionally, then look at going for the 80% chocolate and reducing sugar that way. I'm not telling you to avoid chocolate. Chocolate's fantastic.
No, I was going to say
Yeah,
it would not be possible. I'm such a chocolate monster, but I do.
yeah,
The majority have 85%. The majority of the
yeah,
time,
yeah.
yeah,
But
for that
definitely,
reason.
definitely look at like, okay, how much sugar am I having in my diet, and what swaps can I make? It's not about taking stuff out completely and having no treats, but see what you can swap for lower sugar versions.
Yeah, lovely. Well, I've absolutely loved our chat, Victoria. I feel like the time's really flown. And I know that a lot of people will probably identify with and, find this conversation really helpful. So thank you for sharing your knowledge. I feel like we probably only just scratched the surface, really. But if people do want to find out more, where can they find you? Tell us about
So
any resources or programs or whatever it is that you offer.
yeah, so my website's thelivingherb.com. So I run a free workshop once a month called Hormones: What They Should Have Taught You at School. I go into a lot more detail about what's going on and how to understand those patterns. I've got the quiz, which I mentioned, which helps you to understand those patterns as well. And I've also got a new app, which is really good fun, which is a little chat thing where you can put in what's going on and it'll tell you what sort of tests that you can go and ask your medical professionals for. So I'll give you the links to all of those.
Yeah, yeah, please do. We'll
And
share them in the show notes for anybody that would like to dive into more. But yeah, other than that, thank you so much for being our guest teacher today.
my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I hope you all enjoyed that episode. What I loved about this conversation was Victoria's reminder that, your body isn't working against you, even if it might feel that way. It's trying to communicate with you. And so often we're taught to ignore our symptoms, push through, or assume that feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, or unlike ourselves is just part of being a woman. But as Victoria shared today, understanding your body is one of the greatest acts of self-trust that there is. And if today's episode resonated, Victoria has some brilliant free resources, including a monthly workshop and a hormone quiz to help you understand what's driving your symptoms, as well as an app that can help you identify which tests to ask your healthcare professional about. So you'll find links for those in the show notes. And if this conversation has highlighted something even bigger for you, if you've realized that you've stopped trusting yourself, your body, or your own intuition when it comes to, building your dreams, building your purpose, then I'd love to support you. Inside the cult, my coaching membership for purpose-led women, we work on self-worth, self-trust, and confidence from the inside out, so you can stop second guessing yourself no matter what stage of life you're at, and start creating one, a life and a business that feels like yours. Or if you're looking for more personalized support, you can also find details about my one-to-one coaching in the show notes. If you did enjoy today's lesson, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review or share this episode with another woman who needs to hear that she isn't just getting older and she deserves to feel like herself again. So until next time, have a great day.